Okay, so good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our very first presentation of Webinar Week. So this is a set of educational webinars brought to you for free by Beyond Pulse and lots of our friends within the industry. So today, absolutely delighted, obviously, to be joined by Miss Skye Eddy and the Soccer Parenting Association. Skye is a dear friend to all of us at Beyond Pulse, and I will now turn it over to her to introduce herself for those that don't know her, provide a little bit of background, and then we'll get discussing the importance of how soccer can inspire, and a conversation and a little deep dive into the history that we both shared with the late, great Mr. Tony DiCicco. So, Miss Skye, over to you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Tom. I love saying and thinking that I'm close with all the BP guys. I love you guys and all the work you're doing and just such great quality people. So I know you do a great job of bringing the community together. So thanks for having me here. For those of you who don't know me or my background at all, my name is Skye. I am the founder of Soccer Parenting. I'm an active coach. I have my B license. I have my national goalkeeper license, my grassroots instructor's license. So, you know, I'm active on the coaching side of the game, but as my kids grew up in the game, I just really became acutely aware of the stress that is happening between coaches and parents. Of course, I'd always felt that and been aware of it, even as a young coach, but decided to do something about it. And so I've been really working to, you know, at Soccer Parenting, we believe that collaborative relationships between coaches, parents, and clubs is really in the best interest of player development. So I spent a lot of my time with clubs and engaging them about parent engagement, the importance of parent education. I've created a platform for that. You know, at the end of the day, I think what I want is what all of us that are on this call want, and that is to make youth soccer better. And, you know, I'm really excited. I'm proud of the impact that soccer parenting is having on our youth landscape. So yeah. Thank
you for that. And I'm going to steal one of the phrases that you use a lot. That was, I believe you said you stole from Christian, and that was that collaboration is a force multiplier. You normally open with those lines, and I think the whole purpose of our intentions this week is to do just that in a tough time, come together to help the landscape and everybody that's here who's clearly invested in doing that as well. So guys, girls, obviously, firstly, thank you for being here. And secondly, if you do have questions throughout this, we can make this as engaging and as interactive. And obviously, some of the anecdotes that Skye will dive into may strike a personal chord with some of you. And, you know, please feel free just to pop your hand up or open the chat or unmute yourself and chime in. So without further ado, Skye, I prepped you, which I feel a little, I feel like I cheated a little bit, because normally I ask this question off the fly. But with the title of this conversation and how soccer can inspire, what I would like you to do to kickstart the conversation and give a shout out to some of the great work that's being done by people is if you could open up by naming your all-time, all-star, five-a-side list of coaches who have inspired you. Who are they? What were they doing that was so special? And if you could, please give one defining characteristic that you felt separated them from the rest.
Absolutely. Yeah, you did give me a heads up that this was coming, but it was easy. I just wrote my list. Like, you know, it wasn't something that I had to spend a lot of time on. I would say in no particular order. Maybe I'll start from like youngest to oldest and how they impacted me. The first coach, his name is Eddie. I do not even know his last name. He was a goalkeeper from England, and he was in with John Ellis at his camps in Northern Virginia. And I was maybe 8 years old, first goalkeeping education I'd ever gotten. And he always called me a lion. And I just loved that. It just like stuck with me, resonated with me. Last time I saw, or a few times ago when I saw Jill, like she remembers Eddie. So just this moment that he took to connect with me, whether it's through the nickname or just the time he took, he really at that young, very impressionable age, gave me a connection. So I would say Eddie is definitely on the list.
Kudos to Eddie.
Yes. Exactly. Eddie, I don't even know your last name. And then probably the next person on my list here that I interacted with would be Dr. Matnick. You know, I'm really lucky that
Yep.
I had a chance to work so closely with Dr. Matnick for many years, and then moved on to Soccer Plus and Tony's camp for many years. And so just the goalkeeping background and education that I got. I was a camper at Dr. Matnick's camps, and I would say probably the key things that I took away from Doc were actually, from a coaching standpoint, was like methodologies and teaching, like how to
Okay.
go through a progression, or how to, you know, his presence is just phenomenal at the camps leading. And so as a young coach, he really, really impacted me in understanding the importance of how we communicate, when we communicate, the words we use, how we stand, all of those things. I really, really learned from Doc.
I just, Dick Bate, who many people may have known on the call, he used to talk about coaches having magnetism and a magnetic quality that just radiated, and you know, people felt warmed to and comfortable with, but that they naturally controlled their environment. And it sounds like, you know, you shared something similar there.
Yeah, I never met Dick Bates, but
Phenomenal.
yeah, well, yeah, and I feel the same way though. Like people that I hear talk about him, I feel similar.
Right.
Third coach on my list here is Mr. Dobson. Mr. Dobson was actually my track coach. I ran track really competitively in high school, and I would say that the takeaway from him was just about relationship building. You know, this was somebody that really took the time to get to know me and my family. And honestly, like when I was recently accepting an award for my high school, I called him my best friend in high school, like literally just a really close, and I still keep in touch with him now just to continue to express gratitude to him. So just the relationship building that he did. Next on my list here is Franz Hook. You know, Franz, I had the chance to meet, I'm sure people know who Franz is, but the first time I met him, I was with a Region 1 group in Holland. He was coaching Ajax. Simon was a goalkeeper there, and I just stood at the fence watching them coach, and just seeing, this is the first time I'd ever really seen this type of goalkeeping education. So I've kept in touch with Franz throughout the years. What strikes me with him is just innovation. He's always on the cutting edge. He's always looking deeper. He's always trying to improve himself. I know he's coming out with a book this next year. It's going to be super innovative. Like nothing in goalkeeping have we seen like this. So that's definitely my big takeaway from Franz. And then finally, Tony, of course. You know, Tony's without a doubt the captain of my five-a-side team. And we'll talk a lot about him today.
Perfect. And again, I think it's always really interesting when you and I have conversations like this that stem a lot around interpersonal skills, connectivity, relationship management, relationship building, intentionality. And obviously those are kind of phrases and topics that we're going to kind of look at a little bit further. But for people, we have no way of knowing the background of everybody on the call. Obviously, we're fortunate to have personal relationships with many, but it's always something now that seems to be becoming more and more apparent is the value of the personal piece of what we do, and obviously the impact that we can have over the lives of the people that we work with. So I think your stories there just resonate even further with that, and how, you know, our actions and behaviors can inspire when delivered in the right way.
Absolutely. I'd say, like, so 4 out of the 5 people I spoke about was all about relationship and connection building. That's why they're on my list. Yeah, the soccer's all there, but it's relationship building. And that's pretty much what I see in the work that I'm doing when I'm talking with coaches around the country, is that 80% of our impact is through connection and through interaction.
And I think that leads really nicely into number one of the kind of 4 things that we wanted to discuss, with how Tony had the impact that he did on you and on me and on many of the Soccer Plus family and US Soccer family and the NSCAA and now United Soccer Coach family. And it was the title of his book, which was, of course, Catch Them Being Good, which, come on, there you go, right there.
I have a stack of books right here. It's always in my stack.
Well, that was product placement without even being prompted. So kudos to you. So Skye, talk to us about what Catch Them Being Good means to you, and the impact that you witnessed it have firsthand on people, and how it could be a contributor to the inspiration that he offered so many.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's something that is just so ingrained into the work that I do and the interactions that I have, whether it be with kids as I'm coaching them now, or whether it be just my interactions with coaches and parents. You know, it's the amount of connection that people feel to the game when you can support them and see the positive. I see it in my parenting. This is how it would play out. Well, I have two stories to think about with Tony. So the first one is the first week I work for Tony. We're in Connecticut, Simsbury. We're doing a breakaway session, and he's standing behind the goal of my group. So at these Soccer Plus camps, you know, similar to camp environment, you have like a master demo, and then the coaches take their groups out. So I'm working with my group on the breakaway. Then we had like this progression that we would work through. Anyway, Tony's behind the goal, and I'm not cognizant that he's there. I'm working with my group. I'm like very aware, and he's listening. He's not interrupting at all. He's giving me my space, but he's definitely listening to every word. I send the kids out to a water break, and he comes up to me and he just takes this extra moment and just says, your campers, your players have really picked up this session really well. You're a really good teacher. And I can tell you're really passionate about teaching this specific subject. And we're really happy to have you on board. And just walked away. And I was so nervous when he was coming up to me. I was waiting for this like graph response or something. And that was him just catching me being good. It wasn't anything else other than that. And just a kind of a quick comment. And my favorite thing that I saw him do a couple times, this is brilliant. We're on the field. It's usually like a night session. It's just chaos, right? A lot of times these goalkeeping camps, there's goals everywhere. There's balls flying. Kids.
Yeah, it was bedlam.
Balls. Huh?
Bedlam. It was.
Yes, yeah. Yes, absolutely. And every once in a while, he would blow his whistle, and he would just, this long whistle, walk out onto the field with his hands up, and everything would stop. Like the balls would just roll away. Everyone would like be looking, and he would walk right over to a player. And he would just say out loud for everyone to hear, but talking to the individual player, just give him a high five and just said, that was amazing. I saw you working on that all morning and on that footwork. And look what just happened because you tried, or something like that. And we would all be like, yes, like, and just give it a moment. And then it would just be silence. And then he'd walk away and we'd get back into it. But, you know, for that individual player, that's catching them being good. That's like highlighting. And if you hear what I said, it was the process that the player was going through. It wasn't like that was an amazing save. Yeah, it was. And it was an amazing save because of how hard you worked or the effort that you put in. So, you know, it's always building this kind of growth mindset, which, you know, I know now all about growth mindset as a coach, but it wasn't something that I knew at that time as a coach. It wasn't terminology that I ever used. So right. I love that about Tony. And I think that's really relatable to the work that we're doing. You know, we talk about collaboration just in the youth landscape right now. The last time I think I saw you face to face was it down in where were we? Miami?
Players Fest. Oh, yeah. The convention.
Yeah, that was after that. I love that Players First event because it was so collaborative. Yeah. Like I felt like such a good, like great conversations happening. So, you know, we can catch each other being good as coaches too. You know, we can catch the referees being good. There's no reason why we can't tell the referee after a match that they did a really good job or that you appreciated a call. Like we need to start thinking about that and layering that into our work on a daily basis.
Yeah, and I think, look, we obviously were very fortunate that we saw him work firsthand, and I think that behavior of his resonated deeply with his desire to seize every day and to enjoy every day, right? And for every day every practice to be the best practice. And from this perspective, I remember having a conversation with him where he said traditionally every stoppage and every conversation is about a correction. Every stoppage that we make is about fixing a problem. It's not about applauding good work.
Yeah.
And then obviously learning a little bit more about the intentionality that he operated with in his everyday life, this resonated so deeply. And I think that's you know, for those of you listening, I don't know if people have have experience of this, but you know, that idea of when I am stepping into a session or when I am bringing a group in, what are we, you know, what are we celebrating? Why are we stopping it? Can we find moments to praise and applaud and, you know, acknowledge good practice outside of necessarily having for it to be a corrective moment? So that was something that always struck me about how he found ways to energize and engage with people in a positive manner. And just, you know, it was really
absolutely.
So many links.
Keyword there is, you know, like intentionality to that. I was just feeling that yesterday. I was filling out, I taught a grassroots course a couple weeks ago. So I was going through the pages of experience as the instructor in the course. And there was an opportunity for me to give feedback on every, you know, space that the coach writes how they're feeling. Anyway, I found myself looking immediately to things that I want to work on and then giving them feedback on that. And then towards the end, I started getting really intentional about, at the beginning, they say things they do well. And instead, why don't I just tell them how amazing that is if they do those things well, instead of trying to correct something along the way. So, you know, I think that these things do kind of layer in really easily to our work and to helping us find joy around the game, like,
right.
And helping that feeling of inspiration be more prevalent and more present in our work that we're doing.
For sure. And this, I think that's another nice conduit. For him, it was always about the kids.
Yes.
And removing, and one of the biggest examples I could give of this is when he returned to coaching at CCSU towards the end of his life and hearing a story.
Tell people that story, because this is phenomenal. This is a coach that is like the most winning coach in U.S. soccer history at this point. And what does he do?
Well, he was the first one on away trips to pick up the bags, to pick up the balls, to clear the field, to want to unload the bus.
Yeah. He was Mick Darcy's assistant. Like, was he a volunteer assistant? I love it.
Volunteer assistant. Yeah, he replaced, when I moved back to England, he replaced me, the most winningest coach in US history. And he went in to work with obviously a very dear friend in Mick and Jen, and, you know, and wanted to be there for the girls because, again, it was all about them. It was all about the kids. It was no sense of ego and just the humility that shone through with every action that he performed. But he also, before meeting people, he knew the name of them. He knew how to connect with them. So, you know, again, it's a great way of, you know, give me some more examples that you saw.
Well, for me at the camps, because, you know, I would work, and you and I never crossed paths at the camps, but we have that in common. But, you know, I would work 7 weeks in a row. You'd start, you know, up at Nike, over at Nike, and then go to Dallas. And then, you know, we're all over the country. And, you know, you get to week 5. And for those people that don't know Soccer Plus, like, just to understand, like, Soccer Plus in the old days was like hard. It was 3 sessions a day. It was way overloading these kids, like ridiculous amount of load, which at that time was like a little bit societal, but it was also really, really, you know, it was planned. But you're spent as a coach, and here we're in our 20s. Like, all we're supposed to be thinking about is ourselves. And yet the staff that he brought in, because not a really fun conversation with Diane and Tony about this just a few years or just before Tony passed away, is, you know, a lot of the staff didn't make it. They'd come in for a week and then be like, nope, they don't cut it. Like, or they wouldn't get hired the next summer. So those of us that survived and kept coming back, you know, we had this quality of selflessness about us, and there is no room for ego. No room for ego. It has to be about the kids. And, you know, like I said, we'd be tired. There's no leaning on a post when you're in the middle of coaching. You know, you stand behind the goal, you stand in the goal. You don't lean on anything. You don't sit down. Or there's a kid that's walking alone to the fields, and, you know, you're interacting with your coaching friends, and you see a child walking alone to the fields that looks a little bit lonely. You have to go talk to them. You can't let somebody be alone. Or the same thing in the dining hall. Somebody's eating alone. You use that. You have to get up if you're a coach, and you go and you talk to somebody else, another camper, give them an opportunity to be a leader, and say, go invite them into your group. And so it was always about the kids, and it really was never about us as much as we wanted it to be, because again, that was just where we were developmentally in our 20s. It was always about the players, and that mattered. That set the framework. I think about Tony. I think he's such a giver.
Right.
He was such a giver, and it was always about everyone else and not about him. And that's a lesson that we can really translate into the work that we're doing. And a lot of this, and it's getting better. I feel like just across the board, the ego coach is finding that they don't have a place. Like I love the people that I'm meeting in the game these days, like just quality, good people with good hearts and great intentions. Just the people that are on this call right now, I know many of them, and I feel that way about every single one of them. And so that's really exciting. But it really, all of our focus in the work that we're doing every day, even now when we're kind of all in our homes and not interacting on the fields with players, we have to figure out a way to make this about the players and just support them in what they're going through in this moment.
Right. And I think you obviously, you referenced there everybody online, and one of our drivers, as we said at the start of the conversation, was to be able to share, so that the experience that our players, and I use our as a collective for everybody on this call, the collective experience is a better one. And obviously I know why that's one of your biggest whys within the Soccer Parenting Association, is to make sure that the relationships that the players and coaches have, the parents and coaches have, so that the player experience can be, as positive and beneficial as possible. So again, I would echo this. If there's people that have got, resources or ideas, intentions, experiences, examples to share, again, feel free to pop up in a message and give us something that we could potentially come back to and touch upon. But also over these, next few weeks where we are bunkered down in a tough time societally, it's a great place to come together, so that we can do our best to, as we said when we were offline, to make sure that the kids don't suffer, and we find novel and creative ways to help one another. So that's great. We change track a little bit with the next part of all of this, where obviously the level that he got to work at was one that many, both in the playing and coaching professions, never will. Obviously at the international level, the professional level, and across that journey, there's going to be times where not everything goes to plan, and really it's not supposed to be easy. There's a part of this process, and that everybody goes through developmentally, where there's going to be roadblocks and obstacles. Can you talk a little bit about how he was so inspiring, or other people that you may have seen that have found ways to inspire and motivate when times do get tough?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I was talking earlier about like the load of the camps, ridiculous. Like,
Yeah. Pressure training.
So you have 3 sessions a day. You'd have a lecture that was started at 9:30 at night. Kids would get to bed at 11, back up on the fields. We do pressure training twice a week, twice during the camp. So like on Mondays and Thursdays, depending on the flow of the camp. And pressure training was ridiculous. It was like, many people here might know it, but it's 45 to 60-second stints where, like, for goalkeeping, we're doing like front smother, low dive, and you have a partner that's serving you, and the whistle goes and you start and you get to see how many you can get, and it's intense, and then everyone comes together. And when I look back on that pressure training, those times, and just the camp in general, at the end of the week, the conversations that we'd be able to have, if I was directing camps and bringing all the campers together, there'd be like 80 kids in a circle and all the staff, and we'd be arm in arm. And, just that conversation, to be able to say to these campers, like, nobody has worked as hard as you this week. I am so proud of the effort that you put in. And this will be a lesson you can take with you for life. Just them being able to find their limit and push themselves to that and see their reserves. Like that was such an important lesson for these kids to learn. And now I talk to parents and I explain pressure training, and I'm like, parents would be like, stop,
Horrified.
no.
Yeah, for sure.
But back then, we'd be getting letters from parents after camp, and Tony would share these with us. Literally, he would like copy them and put them in the mail for us, like in October. Like it would be like feedback that he would get from a parent, like, what did you do to my child? Like, I sent them and they were this kid, and they came back that kid. And, we were really changing lives. And it's not supposed to be easy to make exceptional change like that. And I think that's a lesson that we need to bring into the work that we're doing on the field with kids, and to help parents too, because I'm a parent right now, and it is hard being a parent. And so any support that as coaches that we can give parents in pushing their child more is going to benefit the child forever. And I know that it impacted me tremendously. The other thing that Tony said a lot was, I don't know that I have this verbatim, but it was something to the impact of like, I want to train you hard enough so that you believe you will win. Like, and that's something that, it doesn't have to be hard, like physical load, because the hard can also be cognitive load,
For sure.
and it can be, you guys Beyond Pulse obviously understand the importance of keeping things going and keeping them active. So, I think we need to look as coaches that that's our role with these players, is to help them understand their cognitive work. Callie came back from Tovo. My daughter spent 2 months at Tovo with Todd Bean, and she's talking about cognitive fitness. I love it. But those are the things that we can do if we're intentional. Those are the ways that we can do that.
And I think he spoke to me once about earning the right to win every game. It's not given.
Yeah.
You're the best team in the world. We still have to earn the right to win every game that we play in. And that comes through the habits that you create in training, and it comes through the habits that you practice with every day, and it comes with the decisions that you make on and off the field. And I think, again, it's hard. All I will say is this: you speak about Tony and you have a smile on your face. So for people that are on the line and never got, the pleasure and the privilege, you see the impact that, he had on the people that got to work with him, and the level of inspiration that we obviously feel when we relive memories. But for all of us and the broader community, again, we'll go into the book Legacy, and the ECNL did a great thing, in my opinion, of bringing James Kerr in to speak to everybody, and the energy that he brought to a room. But one of my favorite sayings from him, and the book talks about plant trees you'll never see grow, and the impact that this inspiration that Tony gave to you and to me and to the hundreds of others that shared our history with him, and how it now transcends to the people that we get to work with, who sadly will never have the opportunity to see him, to listen to him. But that intentionality, that mindset, that ability to dig in, that ability to be unapologetic about challenging your players and asking them, as Todd talks about, the mental load, the amount of decisions that you're making in a practice, it should be difficult. We should be drained. We should be tired, because it's hard to focus for 60 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever it is. But not, again, maybe not overloading now that the world has developed as much as perhaps we were accustomed to, but definitely to a point where we're challenging them to be better in every way. And like you, he's my biggest, when he said you do it and you do it this way, and you look at the success that he got out of living life that way, then that's good enough for me. So it was always a nice one.
I think that as coaches, we do need to, there've been so many things that have been thrown at us in these last 10 years, so much innovation, like, rethinking this and having these tools and practice planning and this and that. Like, it's really easy for us to lose the sense of building a training session that is productive and meeting our goals, because there's so many other things that are layering in. And so I would say that, pushing the player, and I didn't intend to give a BP like Beyond Pulse like little plug here, but even after talking to you guys and like going back to my training session and making it faster, making the breaks quicker, and going through this, like the kids loved that. And my sessions before were too easy, so if we're talking about this concept of like, it's not supposed to be easy, I could see immediately that, I mean, I was coaching U10s. So my littles would like just rise to the occasion and get more connected and be more into it. And the learning was happening. I could just see it happening only because I sped up the sessions. My breaks weren't as quick. I was just a better coach. And it was really thinking about this concept of it's not supposed to be easy and the benefits it has for kids.
No, that's brilliant. And we'll, again, we won't spend too much time on this right now, but we will have more conversations throughout the week on, using that kind of idea and how it influences practice design so that, we can maximize the time that we do have with players, obviously being one of our primary objectives as a company. So thank you for that. It's always unplugged as well. You weren't even paid to do that. That was amazing.
Absolutely not.
Okay. And let's kind of round out the part of me and you talking before we kind of open it up to people. Just close, and again, I think we started with a portion of this, but close with the importance to you of relationships and why they matter so much, and how he was the embodiment of that in everything that he did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the last camp I worked with Tony was in New Hampshire, whatever state that is. I actually went back and worked. I hadn't worked Soccer Plus for like 5 years, and I went back after Ben Pinkerton passed away, and just as a tribute to Ben, and worked a couple camps that summer. And this last camp, looking back, just so grateful because this was also my last time working on the field with Tony. I'm directing the camp. Grubber's there in my group. Like it was a good staff. And I'm directing this camp, and Tony walks up because he's just going around on the fields. And I'm doing this big demo, and I am hopping from group to group to group. Tony walks up to me and he says, "Hey, what's her name?" And looks at a camper. And I am like, "No shit, Tony, that's the one camper I don't know her name." And he knew it. He could tell from the way that I was interacting with her that I didn't know her name. And he's calling me out on it in his way, because for him, we have to know the names of the players. Like, that's essential. Like, just having that connection with people, like that actually really does matter. For us to be able to say to somebody, "Hey, Tom," or "Hey, Kelly," like I said, or like that means something. And it means something for them, but it also means something for me and my connection to the world. And so, for Tony, relationships matter. And I mean, Tom, you and I met each other in Chicago. What was that? A year and a half ago? No.
18 months ago. Yeah.
Was that just a year and a half ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, at the convention. So, like, to us meeting, we were fast friends. Like,
Sure.
It was just immediate, because once we made the Soccer Plus connection, and once I knew that you were in that circle, like I knew that I wanted to spend more time hanging out with you, and I wanted to be in your presence. And so, like, that's what he did, is found the ability to really bring people together, and those relationships do matter. That's what matters to us more than anything. We're all operating in our homes right now, or I'm in my office, but we're all isolated, and what we're craving right now is relationships, and what we're really cognizant is lacking is this relationships. And so I think we could use this as an opportunity to just celebrate each other and celebrate how important we are to each other, as much as it might be like people I only see on Twitter, talk to on Twitter, or barely interact with, but we matter, and we do form a really powerful entity that is changing the lives of players and families on a daily basis, obviously, as well as ourselves. So yeah, relationships totally matter to Tony. It was the all the pieces of the puzzle, really. It was the foundation.
Yeah, and I think to each of us as well, the ability, I remember my first ever convention with him, walking around Indianapolis and being stopped at every restaurant, at every bar, and somehow he knew the names. Sometimes he'd never forgot faces.
Oh.
And again, it was the selflessness and the willing for somebody who had his attention craved by everybody to still find, whether it was 30 seconds or 5 minutes or a dinner, he found a way of letting people know that he was still there for them, that they did matter to him, that and again, you know, for all of us, when it does get chaotic and fast paced, and sometimes there's, you know, there's other things we'd rather do, like him being willing to take that time again as the example to so many of what the best looks like, that always resonated so powerfully. So I think you did a lovely job of being so eloquent with how you described that. And you know, I hope it does just share a message of the impact that you know, the impact of leaving by his example, and what it can have and what it can bring to the people that we get to work with and influence on a daily basis. So thank you for that little trip down memory lane. To those listening, you know, I think we have maybe a couple of minutes left. Me and Skye have got through the kind of key discussion points for where we were in terms of what we were hoping to share, and provide some anecdotes in terms of how we can learn from, you know, learn from him. So I have a couple of questions here. So Daniel mentioned that he's saying the game demands must obviously be replicated during the training week. Games are not easy, and therefore training at high levels shouldn't be easy either, and certainly training shouldn't be low loads, as and when it's physically appropriate to push them. And he obviously mentioned that the character of a player or a team is defined by adversity. You know, can they see it? Can they overcome it? And how much of an influence can a coach have, Skye, in helping them do that? What would you say to that?
Well, I would say that's coaching. It's like whether it's even creating within a training environment adversity, so that the players have to work through that. It's us being super, super intentional in the environment that we are creating, because sometimes like adversity doesn't have to be like you've lost, you know, every game of the tournament, or you know, it doesn't have to be that. It can be a player struggling through something themselves, like having to be a leader on the team. You as a coach, you know, creating an environment where this player has to be a leader. That is them struggling. That is them. I talk about that, you know, in a lot of the work that I do is we got to jungle. We got to be ready to get into the jungle. You know, we create this environment that's so protective for children. We need to see the power of failure and the power of that adversity, and we need to actually, you know, create and push. It's not supposed to be easy. We talked about that. Like push them hard enough so that they're able to do that. That's something that I felt I come back to. Sorry if I'm talking too long in answering this question, but I think a lot about. I don't know why this just came to me, but it did, so I'll talk about it. One of my friend's sons went to Tobo with Todd many years ago, like 3 years ago now, and he came back, and the thing that he kept saying was talking about like checking his shoulders and being aware, positionally aware. And I'm like, well, haven't people told you that your whole life? And he was like, yes, but he made me do it. Like we weren't allowed to progress, or it was the constant coaching point. He hounded me on it. It was overwhelming. Like I wanted him to stop, but he made me learn this. And the player was going through adversity, like struggling to find out, but came out on the other side of it. And maybe I think sometimes that we're just too easy on players. We're not pushing them hard enough, because that's when coaching is hard, when we have to actually be 100% in it and be thinking about every moment that happens.
I'm gonna add a caveat to that and say that Tony did a great job, and maybe you can reference this a little bit more clearly than I can, but his vulnerability in tough times to model desired behaviors. And I think in the book, in Catch Them Being Good, he spoke about, I want to say it was a conversation with Mia Hamm, but I could be misrepresenting that, to say that there was a point where he needed a conversation to understand more about how to connect with, or how to push, you know, the women harder and faster and keep on them, and basically acknowledge that maybe he wasn't perfect and maybe he didn't have all the answers, but help, right? So his preparedness to acknowledge that it wasn't supposed to be easy, and you know, that but still having it about the kids or the players, and that relationships were important. And he felt that he built one where he was able to open up. Like, how does that echo what Daniel's saying in terms of, you know, the character of a team is going to be defined by the person that models the desired behavior at the very top, right? So
yeah. And if you talk about adversity and getting through adversity, I think one of the foundational building blocks of us as human beings to get through adversity is obviously the strength, but it's also vulnerability, which I know is such like a go-to word now, but I'm so glad it is a go-to word, because it's essential to our growth as human beings and as coaches. And Tony was a master. Well, I mean, he was just so vulnerable in his time and in his giving, but in his willingness also to listen and to be wrong. Like, he genuinely would say to you in a staff meeting something like, well, what do you think? And he wasn't just saying that because that was what he should do as a leader. He was actually listening and maybe even changing his mind or changing the course of his action based on what we would say. I mean, just the vulnerability, you know, comes in so many different layers for us. Whether that also be, you know, just talking to Tony about, you know, him and his desire and willingness to just really get to know me and my feeling safe, that I could just be a human being around he and his family and Diane, his wife. You know, just how much they opened their door to me was.
And yeah, I'm going to ask you to share a story to close out on how he did that with Callie, and when you sent her there to stay. But just to you know, just to add to what we just spoke about, and there was a really powerful line. Again, I don't know who to give credit to, but it was that a coach's job is not to appear invulnerable. Like, there's nothing, we put up a mantra of we must be right or we have all the answers, and quite clearly we don't. And I think it's, again, this conversation is heavily centered in the influence that Tony had and how he inspired us through soccer to as people and as coaches. But that's a message that, you know, I think if any can resonate with the people on the line, you know, it would be that yeah, there's power in community, and there's power in vulnerability, and there's power in sharing. So as I said, to close, please, you know, just take the time. Obviously, the man with so much on his mind and so many chores, what did he do for Callie when you guys when you sent her there to stay?
Yeah, are you talking about the game, like videoing the taping the game? Yeah. So, well, to begin with, like, Tony's taking camp and everyone's arriving, and he, like, literally, this is not the story you intended me to say. He took her to her room. I sent her up on a flight. She's like 11 going to Soccer Plus, and he literally, like, takes the time to help her unpack and put her fan together for her, like, just that connection, because he knew that, you know, she was younger and she was away from home, and he really wanted to take good care of her and make sure that she felt really well loved. There was another time where, this is where you were getting at, that the first time we would be driving down the coast, and I dropped Callie off at he and Diane's home in Wethersfield to stay for the day, so then they could drive up to camp together, since camp was out of the way for me where I was. And, you know, we opened up the door. Callie's a little nervous. I'm saying, oh yeah, this is, I think, the first time that maybe she had met him. And he opened up the door. He said, I taped the Liverpool game for you, because he remembered that I had just randomly mentioned that Callie was a Liverpool supporter. So that was in the back of his mind, knowing that she'd be nervous to be there and wanting something to do and a way for them to be together. You know, those were the first words out of his mouth, and Callie's face just lit up in excitement. And you know, those are the little things that he would do. One, remembering that she was a Liverpool supporter, but two, you know, being thoughtful enough and being so intentional. Just a great man. So privileged to have been able to work with him for so long, and so deeply grateful that I can even share about him today to this group.
Well, thank you for doing so. I think I can speak on behalf of everybody. It's messages like this and conversations like this, you know, while it's a tough time right now, I think it's so nice to be able to share in the great work that people have done and continue to do. And for everybody that took the time out to listen, thank you. And for everybody that might be listening on record or on repeat, thank you as well. Obviously, all of the work that we do this week will be shared both live and pre-recorded. So everybody can follow us across all the social media handles. Skye, if they want more of you, can you let people know how we can find you?
I'm on all social channels at Soccer Parenting. My website is soccerparenting.com. So Twitter is a good way to connect with me. Email, that's fine. But again, I so appreciate this time today. Thanks, Tom, and thanks to everybody who listened. I hope that you feel a little inspired and motivated to do just a little bit more.
Perfect. And for everybody else, this will go out across our Beyond Pulse YouTube channel, and there'll be links across all of the Beyond Pulse social media handles as well. So Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, it will be available for everybody. So thank you for your time. We will, Skye, if it's okay, we'll transcribe the notes as well, and we'll put stuff out, and we can share on both of our platforms there, so people can take a look as well if they miss a chance to see the video. So thank you for your time, and again for everybody for joining us.
Bye, everybody.